Here we go, sports fans. The AD Vantage Point back on the air after a 2-week hiatus. The talk today is officials, and we're going to keep talking about officials until we get this right. We need more officials on the field, and it's been rough. I was at a couple of games the last few weeks and watching to show officials running from one game to another, one official on a game, games turning into scrimmages. It's not good. But today we have a great guest here. We have a former member of the NYS AAA, hopefully a lifetime member in that. And if he's not, we're going to make sure he's a lifetime member of the NYS AAA. But the former athletic director at Clarence High School, upstate New York, and now retired and now an official. So we'll be able to get a great perspective on both. And that's Greg Kaszubski. Greg Kaszubski from Clarence High School, upstate New York. And where are you living now, Greg?
I live in Amherst, New York, just outside of, probably about 15 minutes from Clarence.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your history, athletic administration, and then getting into officiating. Why would you do something like that?
I was an athletic director for the Clarence Central School District for 30 years. And I would say the last 10 or 12 years of my tenure in that position, we had difficulty getting officials. I could start to see it happening. We had difficulty getting bus drivers. We had difficulty getting lifeguards. But our biggest issue was getting officials. So nothing was more discouraging for me to have a modified game canceled at 2 o'clock when the kids are looking forward to it, and to find out we don't have enough referees. And so you know the drill. You were an athletic director. There are times when everything goes well with having officials coverage, and there are times when it's really, really difficult. And you've got one official that shows up for a high school basketball game, which you know is just not possible. Varsity official shows up early for his game, jumps into the game in the middle of the game. So all these types of different situations really made it difficult for the athletic director. And ultimately, its effect was on the kids. And that was really disheartening for me. So in the end, once I retired, I needed to find something to do, and something that was fulfilling and, useful, and there was a need for it. And I thought about it for a couple of months, and I said to myself, I'm going to be an official. And so this is the start of my third year as an official. I'm a boys and girls soccer high school official, and I actually officiate 12 months of the year. My wife and I are fortunate enough to be in Florida for 5 months. And so from November to the end of, from December 1st till the end of April, I'm in Sarasota. The great thing is high school soccer in Florida is in what is known as our winter sports season. So I officiate here in Western New York, high school soccer, and then I head down to Florida. And whatever day I arrive is the day I start. I constantly get emails from them. Can you get here a week earlier? We really need your help. There's a shortage everywhere. And then I officiate when I come back to Buffalo in May. I officiate the travel soccer for May, June, July, and August. And when I'm down in Florida, when the high school season ends, the high school season starts in mid-November, goes through December and January, and they start their playoffs in February. So it's considerably a longer season than what they have in New York State. But travel soccer goes all year long in Florida. So while I'm doing high school games, I might do a game on a Sunday for a travel team. But when high school ends in, early February, I'm heavy into the travel soccer, February, March, and April, and then I'm back in Buffalo. So it's been great for me.
So 30 years as an AD, brand new official, obviously experienced officials. In the last couple of weeks, we talked about the reasons why, or some of the reasons why we think there's no officials. You're down in Florida. Is pay an issue for the people in Florida as their number one? Because in North Carolina, it wasn't. In New York, it's not. Is pay an issue?
Pay is one of the issues. Just to give you an example, for a varsity game in Florida, right now on their current contract, it's $73. In Western New York, last year, we just signed a 6-year contract, but for last year, it was $92.50. So it's roughly $20 more. in New York State. What they try to do for you in high school during the Florida season is they give you double headers. So they're aligned with double headers. So you'll have a girls JV, then a girls varsity, and then a boys JV, boys varsity. And they also have girls varsity and then boys varsity. So they try to give you as many games as you can. I believe the JV is like $62. So if you do the varsity and JV back to back, you do walk out of there with, you know, um, a decent amount of money for sure. But it's almost 4 hours back to back. You got a game at 5 o'clock, you got a game at 7, and you don't get into your car till a few minutes after 9. And it's a challenge to do 2 games, especially if all 4 teams are at a higher level. It can be for a tough evening.
That's interesting with that kind of setup, because in New York, soccer is not a back-to-back sport
Right.
in New York. And, field hockey is a back-to-back sport. Girls lacrosse is a back-to-back sport. And the reason why we always had that was because there was a lack of officials for
Right.
those 2 sports to put them back to back. So Florida does that. Is there any other, aside basketball obviously does back to back too. Volleyball does back to back. But is there a reason why they do back to back in Florida? Is it because of the lack of officials?
No question.
Okay.
I would say of the high school games that I get, I would say 70% of them are double headers.
Wow.
There'll be some single modified games. Actually, they in the state of Florida, they call them middle school games. During COVID, they actually moved all their middle school games to February. They didn't play during the high school season. With varsity and JV, because they even had more of a shortage with COVID. So they moved them to the month of February, and I had modified games every day, and sometimes I would have 2 a day to get them in. But now it's back to normal. All 3 levels are going at the same time, but they try to double header with modified. They'll go with the modified girls first, and then the modified boys, and then the next time they'll go with the modified boys first and the modified girls. But it's all structured because they have a shortage, no question.
Now, 30 years as an AD here in Western New York, you started to see a trend in parent involvement, obviously related to travel ball and everything else that comes in. But what was the tipping point for you that parents had really gotten too involved in the game where it was going to affect people wanting to officiate the game, or just being able to do your job as an AD?
I can tell you this, being an official now, it's like anything else. I'm going to say to you, 85% of the parents are fantastic. And I would say 85 to 90% of the coaches are fantastic. And probably 95% of the kids are fantastic. So it's not a huge percentage of people, but those people who want to voice their opinions, even though it's not a massive amount of people, they can be extremely difficult. So one of the things that I've said to myself on several occasions, no matter where I've been officiating, whether it's Buffalo or Florida, is I say to myself, you know what? I had a tough time not turning around and saying something to these parents, but as you can't. And I said to myself, if I was 15 years old or 14 or 16 in that area, just starting to officiate, knowing my personality, I don't think I would have been able to handle it. I probably would have done it for a year and just came home and said to my mom and dad, I'm done with this. I'm tired of getting yelled at by parents. So, the parent involvement has been an issue when I was an AD in terms of, how it goes, the playing time and the coach's favorites and all those types of things. And as the kids become more invested and the parents are more invested and they're playing more than one season throughout the year, the ante goes up for the parents. And, but like I said, 85% of the parents really get it. They understand it, but that 15% is difficult, and they've gotten more vocal, and they really feel they have a say in telling you what to do as an official.
And I get that, you know, and we talked about how children today are maybe the status symbol of the parent, and they've invested so much into their time. They feel they want some, you know, ROI, a little return on investment, and they feel that they can just yell and scream and get what they want out of it. But it is, can the problem be handled better at the schools? Is what I'm going to ask you as an AD. Do we do as ADs, do we do a good enough job controlling the situation and addressing the situation? Or is that really the place it needs to be stepped up, aside from asking a parent to behave?
Jim, that's a great question, because I'm going to give you two different scenarios now that I'm an official, which I didn't have before as an athletic director. In high school soccer, Florida and New York State, if there's an issue, you go directly to the coach, and you've already determined who the site administrator is. And as you know, you try to determine who the site administrator is before the game at the high school level. And I would say 40% of the time, there is none. And the coach will look at you and say, I'm the administrator on site. If there's an administrator on site, you know, we'll get them over to the head table before we start the game, identify who the person is. And that person is really responsible for the fans. So how it works in high school is at least in the soccer arena, is if there's an issue with a fan, you don't direct it to the fan as an official. You go over and you see the coach and say, if there's an administrator, you need to get the administrator over there. And once we get things settled down, we'll start the game. And, you know, in a case where there's no administrator, the coach has to hustle over there and try to help with the situation. In travel soccer, USSF soccer across the country, there's a field marshal usually, but the directive is, when you're officiating USSF, is you go to the coach immediately. And I stop the game. And, you know, the clock keeps running, but the game keeps, you know, and the coach has to run over and handle the situation. And because that's the way you do things, they go over, they address the parent, and as soon as the parent's under control and the coach has the situation under control, we start the game. So there's a couple of things. What helps in USSF is you can keep that clock going, and you don't want to see the kids lose time. And if there's a parent who's really been a problem, the other parents start getting on them and saying, okay, you made your point. You know, we want to get going with the game. The kids have been waiting here for 3 minutes, and now it's 5 minutes. And so that usually handles the situation for the most part. And if there's, you know, if I still have a problem with that parent, I'll go over to the official and say, you need to remove that parent from the field area, or this game is over. And they move the parent, and you know, that's how it works. In the high school situation, it's not as clean and easy. First of all, if the situation looks like it's under control, you'll keep the game going, and you know, you'll start up the clock, and hopefully the administrator takes care of the problem. But if it's a continued problem and the administrator can't take care of it, you know, you're going to have to stop the play, so that, you know, in a particular case, a coach or both coaches from both sides, you know, need to go over and help the administrator. So it's a problem. But you know, the USSF situation really is, it's the coach who's responsible for the parent. And in most cases, the coaches have their preseason meeting with their travel parents, and the kids are usually present. And the coach says, look, if you get out of hand, we're going to lose time, and I'm going to have to go over and, you know, take care of the problem. And I don't want to take care of the problem. I want you parents to be, you know, respectful of the players and the coaches and the officials, and, you know, let's not have an issue. And there are teams and clubs, Jim, that I have never had any problems with. And you can tell that that's happened. And then there are clubs that, you know, for lack of a better word, it can be a disaster, because the parents, nobody has control. The coach doesn't have control. The parents are, you know, doing what they want to do in each particular situation, and it makes it more challenging. But in the end, it's the coach's responsibility.
Right.
You know,
Now, getting into the sections in New York, and you and I can both talk about the sections. Do the sections do enough from the as far as schools that are problem schools to go to? We know who they are. We know that if we go to XYZ school, that we're gonna have a problem with the parents. We're gonna have a problem because their security is not there for their fans. They're there for the team. We hear that a lot, that the security that gets sent isn't for them. Should section be more involved in admonishing a school or sanctioning a school for negative behavior on the part of the school itself?
Yeah, sections are always trying to help schools, in this area. But I think one thing that could really help. Now, I can only speak from Section 6, which is Western New York. When there's a player who's ejected from a game and gets a red card, at the end of that game, I have to go home and fill out a report and email it back to the section. And I'm almost thinking at the section right now, they need to have a report available for the officials, for spectators. And if there's an unruly situation at school A, you should be able to document it, and a copy should go to the school athletic director and to the coach. Sometimes ADs get real busy and they don't get that form out to the coach right away. But I think if it was generated, I think that would help with the situation. You could also comment on, was there a program administrator there? Or there was a program administrator there, but wasn't capable of, handling the situation. And I think when that's documented and the AD has 4 of those for soccer games, and they've got a problem. And I think at that point, I think the section can then say, look, you need to get a different security person, or you need to not have 1 for a soccer game, you need to have 2. So I think I really think, the sections do a good job of, let's just say there's a fight in a game. We'll fill out the report because there'll be ejections on both sides. And then at that time, some officials, if they're comfortable with the coach and the program, would call the coach and say, or talk to the coach after the game and just say, look, this is problematic. This is the second time I've had your team, do this. You've got to really take this seriously. And I think if the section has the ability to put some pressure on them through those forms, I think you'll really see some changes with the school district.
I don't disagree with you. One of the issues, I think, now I'm going to flip it a little bit, and because I'll have to play that devil's advocate thing and say, well, an AD will turn around and say, well, I can't get people to work for me. They don't want to volunteer, and we know that that's the case because volunteerism, even though they're getting paid, we still think they're volunteering for this work. Some may be getting paid a lot, some might not be getting paid at all, but we're finding that less and less people want to get involved in these situations just for that reason, because they know they're going to have to possibly become engaged with an unruly parent. So where's our answer here? And this is don't know if we have an answer to this right now, but this is a major problem as far as the schools are concerned, finding qualified people to do this. And if we're supposed to have a safe environment, provide a safe environment, do we have to start hiring outside security to do these tasks for us? I don't know. And that would be my excuse for not being able to provide a perfect environment for you as an official.
Yeah, you're right. Our number one responsibility as official is to provide a safe environment for the players on the field. And, that can be challenging when, there isn't supervision there. The kids know it. and the kids know it's getting out of hand on the sideline. And, they're either going to go in two directions. They're either going to join in with that behavior on the field, or they're going to try to settle things down, with their play, and both teams calm down, and it'll help with the parent situation. But you're right. I had a game last week where the coach said to us, look, I'm here all by myself. This is just me. I'm trying to get ball boys for you. I'm a one-man show here, and I'm going to do the best that I can. And basically, that was a little heads up to us, the two officials, that, you're going to have to really do the best you can on the field, to provide this safe environment. And I'll try to get some ball boys. And, my district only has 2 supervisors, and there's 6 events tonight. And my supervisor is over at that field hockey game right now. But I can call them over if needed. And so you get all those kinds of situations. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, Jim.
Yeah.
I go to something like I had a game in a district on Friday and Saturday as part of a tournament this past weekend. And when I got on site, there was a town policeman there at the gate. So not only did that school district feel it was necessary to have a supervisor, which they did have, they also had a police officer from the town who was very visible. And so to me, that signaled to me that the district has had some issues. They're dealing with it, and they're getting more security. And I did feel safe. I really did.
Here's it just made me think a little bit about it, as ADs now. Let's put our AD hats back on for a second. So we know we have an issue. We know we have trouble with people, but usually and maybe you didn't, but I know when I assign security, sometimes it's good. We've got a fresh body coming to the office. Here's your yellow jacket. Good luck.
Right.
Right. Do we need to provide, and this is probably a rhetorical question, do we need to provide specific training on how to deal with difficult parents? There's actually a course in that with the NIAAA on dealing with difficult parents and or difficult people. Is that something maybe that we might think about developing across the board?
I think it's a great idea, but you know what the situation is going to be. The district that can't pay or get anybody to work to do the supervision, even if you've got a training program, there's no one to administer it to. You've got a district that has people, and you're right. You'll have somebody that is doing their first game, and if they're going to be alone, you look at the 2 opponents and the level of the game, and you're either going, okay, they'll be fine, or you say to yourself, oh, this is going to be a problem.
Right.
But I think if they have, I think it would be great if every supervisor, part of their training, they get paid for those sessions to get trained and deal with parents. And I think if they had video that they could show, a group of supervisors, the different scenarios that happen, and you shut down the video and say, how would you handle this situation? Boom, you pop the video back up, and they show you how the person handled the situation. I think all that would be fantastic. And I think it would be a worthwhile endeavor for schools and the section to do that. And maybe you could have a joint effort. Maybe you could have the section say, okay, listen, you've got to have 2, 1-hour workshops before they can play. And, we'll pay for half of it as a section, and the school district will pay for the other half.
Sure.
But no, that's a good idea. I definitely think, you know how it is. Most of the time, the people you have been involved in athletics, but that's really the extent of it. Sometimes they're teachers and they know how to handle kids, and sometimes they're not teachers. And, they could be anybody, a support staff member that wants to do it. But I think the training would be really good. It can be very intimidating for a supervisor without any support to do it, especially if they're not trained.
It's funny because whenever we, in all my years here, whenever we had meetings, if we ever had any, it was usually just around homecoming on how to deal with security at homecoming.
Right.
And I would try to have my people in certain places. I gave them particulars, especially at basketball games or heavily crowded games. But you get people that are gonna try to hook on to get their final average salary up, and they want to take, I'll go Proctor tennis, which is,
Right.
thank you. I appreciate you going there. We're not going to have too much action at the tennis courts, but it does become a difficult situation for us. I don't know if the NFHS might even have something already about that, but I'm gonna start looking into that. It gives me something else to do. But let's reverse it now. So now I'm going to be the parent, and you as the official. Are you guys doing enough to recruit people and to train people on how to deal with people like me as a parent?
I think, as an AD, the key issue that I had with the officials was recruiting, retention,
Mhm,
and in-service.
mhm.
And I didn't have a problem with a pay raise for an officials group. Now, remember, I wasn't an official for 30 years. I was an athletic director. I didn't become official until I retired. But, I'm not against pay raises, but I want the officials organizations to have a recruiting program. I want to be able to see what the recruiting program is. I think they need to pay someone from the officials organization to be the recruiting director and pay them a stipend for that. What's the retention program, and then what's the in-service for officials? Now I'm entering my third year and I haven't had any in-service, really. And part of it is I started during COVID. So it was difficult to have meetings together. So I had some training as a new official, but that's the extent of it. I haven't had any in-service since then. The USSF provides they have a tremendous video library for soccer and a lot of sports. And, if you want to brush up on substitutions, go to the video that says substitutions. On offsides, go to the video for offsides. The National Federation doesn't have that type of a program yet. They've got a few videos for you to look at, clips of different things, but it's not an organized program as much as the USSF soccer is. And so I think, those things need to help officials. Obviously, if you become a better official, you're a better manager of the game. And because you're a better manager of the game and you're in control, the parents see that. The parents can see a weak, inexperienced official in 10 minutes, and they can see a good official in 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And, the more in service and the more training officials get, the better it's going to be for everybody, because the officials will be of a higher quality, always continuing to get better. And that will help coaches. It will help with fans. And they're a little less reluctant, when the official really is in control and is really doing a good job. And sometimes that type of officiating can intimidate a parent from, this guy really knows what he's doing, or this young lady really, she's fantastic out there. I'm not going to give her a hassle. She knows what she's doing. She's very good. She's on top of the game, and they think the same way. And I just think it makes things, better. From the official standpoint, there's no incentive to recruit. And that was another thing that bothered me as an AD. And why would you say that? Well, I don't know if it's a real situation or not, but this was the perception when I was an AD. They don't want to get a lot of officials because they want to be able to do so many games. And now that I'm a referee and I belong to 4 different associations throughout the year, and by the way, all 4 associations have a shortage. The idea that now that I'm in the officials groups, have I seen a resistance against recruiting? The answer would be no. I would say I think the officials in all the groups want more officials, especially in the travel soccer. I end up doing a tournament on a day, and I may have to do 4 or 5 games in a day.
Wow.
And and you don't want to, you're about to leave, and all of a sudden the assigner says, "Hey, can you do this 4th game for us?" Well, not really, but I'll do it because you don't want to see the kids not have the game. But in the end, the officials, I think my perception as an AD was probably not accurate, in that officials organizations weren't recruiting because they didn't want to have too many officials, because they wanted to keep the game. I really don't see that happening in the officials groups that I belong to. So I think that might be a misstatement on that. But in the end, like we have 30 officials right now in Western New York who are new officials. And that's boys and girls, because the organizations here are separate. So there's a total of 30 with the organizations. And the section in this newest contract that was just approved has some funding in there for new officials, and will help pay with their uniforms and their training. And so that's definitely a step in the right direction. But in the end, it's hard to retain those new officials because of some of the issues. Like I said, 95% of the coaches are great, but there's some coaches out there that are really tough and difficult and challenging. And if you're not experienced, whether you're younger or older, I hear officials say, "I'm done with this. I'm not going to do this anymore. It just isn't fun." And they're going to have to find somebody else to pick on. But as parents feel they have the right to go after a coach, which they don't have, they also feel they have the right to go after an official, which they don't have. But there's a perception out there that they do for one reason or another. So it's hard to get coaches, it's hard to get officials, it's hard to get supervisors. It's we're in a difficult situation right now.
Did we go out too far too fast, maybe? And did we expand too fast? And then when COVID hit, it gleaned the herd a little bit more, because guys found other ways to make money during COVID because there was no games. But have we expanded too much with sports in our attempt to give the kids what we think they need?
New York State has a lot of options for kids in terms of opportunities to play on different sports. I don't know what it is, but I think the sport offerings in a lot of states, in the state of Florida, obviously there isn't ice hockey, and there are sports that, many states don't have: indoor track, ice hockey, bowling,
Field hockey.
Field hockey. Yeah, there's a lot of states without field hockey.
Girls and boys lacrosse.
Yeah, for sure. So when you look at New York State, I don't know, I think the number's around 34 different sports. It's hard to manage that. We had a shortage before COVID, and I think the National Federation came out and said they lost like 50,000 officials during COVID.
Yeah.
And the numbers that actually returned, didn't come close to 50,000. So I think that made the shortage worse. And but I also think the stakes are higher right now for the kids. If you're a senior now, you've had a difficult freshman, sophomore, and junior year in terms of athletics. And the last thing you want to do is not have everything go well for them this year. And this is probably the first year that we can say we've kind of returned to normal. So, I feel badly when, there aren't enough officials to cover games. And some districts have the ability to reschedule and some districts don't. And you know how it goes. Some coaches say, hey, I work till the end of October. I'm not going to do any games in November. And some coaches say, yeah, I'll play in the first week of November. We got to do what we got to do to get. But I think, you know, New York has a challenge. They have a lot of sports that other states don't have. And I would say I'd be surprised if New York wasn't in the top 5 of actual sport offerings across the country.
I don't know what sports we don't offer. Team handball.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, you know, water polo would be one.
Right.
Maybe we have fencing. It's not a state tournament one, but there's
Right.
fencing on Long Island and Westchester, and it's building. And one of the things that that NISBA said was they want to increase participation numbers, so they added girls flag football
Right.
this past year, and now they're talking. There's consistent talk about esports being a possible offering, and of course, you know, guys like me and you, I'm not on the fence on it. I'm on one side of the fence that says, you know, we as much as it'll make a lot of money for the state, I don't think it serves the purpose of interscholastic athletics. And, you know, what they're going to say, well, you don't need officials for that sport. You know?
Right.
And I guess, you know, you shoot something and it says it right there on the screen. So you really don't need any officiating, but you know, so what they'll do is they'll add more sports, and it's addition by subtraction, because if you add something, you're going to have to subtract from another sport. And there's other issues like demographic shifts, people coming from certain countries that don't participate in sports, specific sports. We know that for a fact. You know, if we added cricket tomorrow, it would handle a lot of our issues with Middle Eastern populations that really want to play cricket. But,
Right.
you know, so I don't know if the state is doing the right thing by wanting to add more to create a glut where we can't get officials to do the sports as it is, and now you want to create sports that need officials. And
Right.
where do you get them from? And there's a saying that I use all the time. It says, I don't have a solution to the problem, but I certainly admire it. You know, and that's what I think we do, is I think we look at the problem and admire that problem and just say, good luck. And then we start pointing the fingers to say, well, you know, parents are to blame, officials are to blame, coaches are to blame, kids are to blame. Well, at some point, who's going to take ownership of it and figure out that we've got to make some kind of systemic change? You know, whether it's no officials at modified games, because that seems to be where our biggest problem is in retention. We put people down to the modified level, they stay there for 3 or 4 years on the modified level because they can't move up. Well, now that's different today. I mean, it's
Right.
But 10 years ago, a guy had to stay down there, a woman or a man had to stay down there and do their games. And think of the modified fields that we play at. They're not stadiums.
Right.
So everybody's on the sideline of a lacrosse game, of a football game, of a soccer game. And, you know, the parents are right there yelling at the official 5 feet away. And why would you want to stay doing that for 3 or 4 years? An interesting thing, now my daughter is an official now. She just got into officiating a couple of years ago. Started with volleyball, doing modified games. They started just this year, she got her schedule. It's all JV because they can't get officials. And is she ready for JV? Yeah. And she got varsity games as the R2. Okay, not the top. She's the R2, which is fine. She started doing football last year. Did 3 modified games and some PAL games. This year, she's got 8 JV games. I don't know how good she is as a football official. She's been going to games with me forever, but are we maybe pushing even those people too fast because we're so panicky that we can't cover what we have? I'm done, man.
That's a catch-22, because I'll tell you, when you send a new official, and let's just take your daughter, okay? You send your daughter to a modified game, and chances are she's going to be alone. And like you said, the fans are right on top of you. You're there by yourself. And I got to tell you, some modified games can be difficult to officiate because the skill level is so poor. And therefore, there are a lot more infractions, versus a team that's highly skilled. So I'm not so sure it's a good idea to do that. Now, if you got two people on a modified game, and someone like myself with a couple of years experience is going to work with your daughter that's brand new, that's a great situation. But I'm not sure, it's unfortunate why your daughter's having to do JV games. But the plus side of it is there'll be another official there and someone that will be able to help her and help with her development.
And again, I think she's competent enough and is studious enough to understand the game. But in one of the things she asked me was, she goes, how do I get film? I want to watch some of these teams play so I get a kind of an idea of what they do. And I said, well, ask the school if you can get on the huddle and get some of the film for that. Like, I know the varsity officials for football anyway,
Right.
may watch film, but as a soccer official, do you watch film on teams?
No.
No.
I can tell you this. I'm down in Florida. I get evaluated when I have games at the IMG Academy, and I'm not a referee in the middle yet because I don't have the experience. So I either am an AR1 or an AR2. They video the games, and they video the games for the players, the parents, the coaches, and they evaluate the officials. And you'll get an email the next day telling you where to look on the video, and wanting an explanation of why you made the call that you made. Now, that's only at the IMG Academy. So, last year on my tax return, I did 185 games. Wow. 5 of those games were IMG games. Now, at the same time, I could see those games. I was also able to get it. They give them to the officials. And so it's a great teaching tool, because you can stop it, you can start it, you can say, should I have made that call, or I should have waited a little bit longer, or why did I let that go? So, but yeah, but that's a conscientious official who wants to do that. But I think generally the officials group really is looking for some help and some support. And I think one of the things that could really help officials, look, no one after a long day of work wants to go out to an in-service meeting, and watch some videos. But if you have the ability to do it at home and can sit down, you come home after a busy day of work and you have your dinner and you do what you need to do as a parent, it's easy to get on that laptop and really do your own in-service.
Right.
And there's got to be a way to do it where the organization can keep track of who's doing it, and making sure the actual referee is watching the video. But I think in-service could really become a lot easier to do, especially with the ability of video and Zoom and YouTube.
It's COVID. If COVID did nothing for us, it gave us the ability to live stream in various capacities, whether it was through the pixel lock camera system or whether it was through Huddle. Everybody got to the point where they were forced to do it because no spectators were allowed at games. So districts had to accommodate the needs of the parents and grandparents to see their little kids play. So everybody put cameras in at most of the major sports, and it's just a matter of access. And if an officials association has access to it and then can evaluate or help to evaluate, or when a rating card comes in on an official from a school, that they can go back to that video and see exactly what that official was talking about, or that school was talking about the official. We're going to get to that point sooner or later, but it's a question of how do we get there? Because that's a major change in how officials do business, especially since the old guard is still running officials associations. They may not officiate anymore, but the same guys are still the head official for the most part. And some of them are great. Some are great. And some of them are still living in the Stone Age when it comes to things like this. And they have a fear of technology or a fear of learning about their system. So I think we're going to get to that point. I really do, Greg. I think we're going to get to that point where video assistance to help officials become better officials is going to help. I hope so. It's
No, I think you're right. I think video could be the number one, I don't know, number one use of technology to help coaches, officials, spectators, and supervisors. You could set up a video program for your supervisors. You could set up a program for your parents. You can set up. So I think you're right. Technology. We got to find a way to use technology and really take advantage of it. And I think it'll help. Just a couple of quick observations now that I've been doing it for 2 full years, and I belong to 4 different associations. They've got to figure out a way within these organizations to have, I think the most important thing for officials is, recruiting, retention, and in-service. And I think they really, you have officers, everybody has a treasurer, but does everybody have an in-service person? Probably not. And I think the associations really need to build, you got a president, you got a vice president, and maybe the vice president's duties are, technology and getting officials information. I mean, it's so easy. If there's an unusual game that happens somewhere across the country, and you could get your hands on that video and get it out to your officials just like that, it could really help things. And I will say this: the 4 associations that I belong to, they're all very, very good people, and they are doing it for the right reasons. They really want to do it because they enjoyed their athletic experience for the most part, and athletics has really helped them throughout their lives, and they want to give back. And there's a lot of that. And yes, are there officials that are out there that are trying to, use it to make, for extra money and this and that? The answer is yes. But for the most part, they're good officials. Here's another thing that I thought this would happen, but it actually does happen. Officials are extremely, extremely hard on themselves. And, it'll be halftime and when you get together with the officials, and there's always an official that if they didn't feel they did something right, they'll share it with you right away. Boy, I blew that. What could I have done differently? That happens. And it's a good thing. After a game, officials you'll see them in that parking lot 15, 20 minutes later, and they're still talking. And they're talking about things that, they could have done better, or what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? So it's, contrary to what people might think, the organizations are organized, they're strong. There's a lot of good, caring people in it. And, we just got to figure out a way to, get more officials and keep them. But I think one of the things the officials don't understand is one thing that would really help them and keep the officials is in service. And the more in service you get, the more comfortable and confident you are, which means you're going to be a better official, which means you're going to cut down on your mistakes on the field. You're going to, parents are going to see that you're an experienced official, and so will coaches. So it's a win-win, but it's also difficult to pull off.
I agree. And it's, our mantra in the AAA now is all about professional development and helping them with in-service work, creating programs to develop the athletic director. And, is it easy to do? No, certainly isn't easy to do. Finding qualified people that want to assist in this program is there. But again, it would help if the athletic directors and the officials associations talked more, because right now the section, it's just one guy at the section talking to one guy in the officials association.
Right.
There's no collaboration. We have to trust that section 11 or section 6 or section 5 executive director is operating in good faith, because we know how it is. We know that the sections need the officials, so they may give the officials more leverage and be more lenient with them than we would really like as athletic directors. And we know that that's the case in some places. So how do we get to that point where athletic directors can actually sit with officials and vent, or come up with a plan?
Right.
get key people that have been around for a little bit to do this. I don't know. I mean, you and I have talked about a lot of things that we could change. If we were kings of the world and, how we would do it, we would certainly do a lot of things. And just to kind of recap, because we're coming up on the hour, is it's about in-service. It's about collaboration. It's about assessment. It's about retention. It's about recruitment. It's really officials associations really, and us as ADs, we have to treat this as a business. The consumer is the student athlete and the parent. So how do we take care of them?
Right.
By doing all those things. Greg, you want to finish it off with a final statement of?
Yeah, I can tell you this. I've really enjoyed my experience so far. It's been very rewarding and fulfilling. And I feel that way usually when I have a game that I'm confident I did well with. It appeared that, the kids played hard, competed, parents were respectful, coaches were respectful. For me, it's extremely fulfilling when I get in my car and I go home, and I really feel good about it. And in terms, I want to get better. So I've enjoyed it. I've had some tough situations. I've had some situations where I've made some mistakes, and I've made some mistakes that unfortunately may have changed the outcome of the game. But I recognize it. I'm going to get better. The camaraderie among the officials groups is very good. The camaraderie between the coaches and the officials is really pretty good. So we just got to tweak some things, and I think we can keep this going.
Well, you just probably gave yourself your own interview for the in-service job, because that's the attitude to have. That's the attitude to have going into this. The love for the game first, the wanting to get better second, provide a safe environment and a good relationship. And then maybe fourth or fifth down the road is, the money's good. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's some people that need the money,
Right.
Need the money desperately, but we have to help them get better. If they're not good at what they do, they're not going to be working very long. So we have to help them get better too. Greg Kaszubski, it's been a real pleasure having you on today. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to get this up on YouTube and Spotify right away. We want all our listeners and viewers to like and subscribe to YouTube. The AD Vantage Point comes to you every now and then from the bunker, hopefully with some good information. And, we're going to keep this officials conversation going. But Greg's insight as an athletic director and official really does add a lot more to the discussion. So, Greg, I hope to see you again sometime. If you're in the neighborhood, stop in.
All right.
I don't know if I'm going to get to Buffalo anytime soon, but good luck this season. And I can't thank you enough for coming on.
All right. Thank you, Jim. You're doing a great job with the program. And I think this program is really a step in the right direction in terms of what we all might be starting to look at.
Well, I appreciate you too, man. All right, sports fans, God bless you all. You guys have a great day, and good luck.